August 1976. A muggy Memphis night. Elvis had just left the Mid-South Coliseum when the headlights caught chaos in the parking lot. A young woman lay motionless on the asphalt. The King's Cadillac slowed, then stopped before we go further. Make sure you're subscribed for more true stories of music legends and moments that changed lives forever. This one proves kindness can happen in the blink of a headlight. The white Cadillac had barely rolled 10 feet from the backstage door when Elvis leaned forward. Out past the rows of parked cars, something didn't look right. Not the usual after-show frenzy. This was stillness. A tight knot of people, frozen under the yellow glow of parking lot lamps. He was still damp from the stage lights, black hair matted at the edges. The faint tank of hairspray mixed with the heavy Memphis night air behind. Them, the muffled echo of cheers still rattled in the Coliseum walls. Security walked ahead, scanning for stragglers. The Cadillac's tires crunched over loose gravel. A guard pulled the passenger door closed, but Elvis didn't take his eyes. Off that huddle in the distance, someone shouted, high and sharp. Not the kind of sound you hear after a concert. It was August 1976, hot enough that the asphalt still radiated heat even at night. The smell of gasoline drifted from idling engines. Inside the huddle, a young woman lay flat on her back. A cardboard. Sin had slipped from her hand, face down on the pavement. When the wind caught it, a flash of marker bled through. From Tupelo to Memphis, we love you. One of the bystanders knelt beside her, waving frantically for help. Her hair was fanned across the blacktop, and a plastic oxygen line trailed from her nose to a silver tank tipped on its side. A faint hiss leaked from its valve. Witnesses recall she looked no older than her early 20s. A few people in the crowd recognized her. She and her sister had been in the front row just hours earlier. From the driver's seat, one of Elvis's men muttered, "Probably best to keep moving." Elvis's eyes narrowed. He tapped the driver's shoulder. Stop. The Cadillac slowed, brakes sighing in the thick air. Security immediately objected. "We'll handle it, boss. You stay inside." But Elvis was already reaching for the door handle. For a split second, he hesitated, not from fear, but calculation. He'd learned years ago that when he stepped into a crowd, chaos followed. But something about the scene in front of him felt different. Urgent. The woman's chest barely moved. The sister's hands fluttered, trying to do something, anything, to help. Some in the crowd had already spotted the white Cadillac. Heads turned, whispers spread. Cameras weren't ready yet, just eyes widening as they realized the King might actually step out. Later, those same witnesses would say they'd never seen Elvis move that fast. In one smooth motion, he pushed the door open. The humid air wrapped around him like a blanket. Gravel crunched under his white boots as he walked toward the huddle, security calling after him. Voices sharp and urgent. He didn't slow down. The first thing they heard was his voice, low but firm. "Everybody back up." Security widened their stance, forming a quick barrier, but Elvis was already kneeling beside the young woman. The heat from the blacktop pressed through his trousers as he leaned in. Her skin was pale under the flicker of a nearby street lamp. The oxygen tube had slipped loose from her nose. Elvis caught the faint hiss from the tank lying on its side. A soft sputter, like a deflating balloon. The smell of hot rubber from nearby tires mixed with the faint perfume on her wrist. She was limp. The crowd's murmurs felt far away, like the ocean in a shell. "Easy now," he said quietly, guiding the tube back into place. A woman knelt opposite him, shaking, eyes red. "I'm her sister," she blurted. She has a lung condition. We saved all year to see you." Her voice broke. She didn't want to leave until the last song. According to those who were there, Elvis didn't flinch. He'd seen fans faint in the heat, but this was different. The rise and fall of her chest was barely there. He took her hand, his thumb pressing lightly against her knuckles, grounding her. "What's her name?" "Mary," the sister said. He glanced at his head of security. "Get me a doctor," he ordered. The man hesitated, then bolted toward the venue. Elvis looked back to Mary, lowering his voice, as though it were just the two of them in the world. "Mary, it's Elvis. Can you hear me?" Her eyelids trembled, but didn't open. Somewhere behind them, tires screeched. Red and blue lights began to strobe across the parking lot, washing over Elvis's face. A police cruiser rolled up fast, siren fading as it stopped just feet away. 2 officers stepped out, hands resting on their belts, and froze. One of them, a Memphis patrolman named Bill Harper, later told a local paper, "I expected to see a regular civilian down there. Then I saw it was Elvis Presley, kneeling on the asphalt, and for a second I didn't know if I should move or just stand there." The flashing lights painted the scene in alternating waves of blue and red. The soft whir of the oxygen tank filled the gaps between voices. Elvis didn't acknowledge the officers, not yet. His focus stayed locked on Mary. One officer stepped forward to take control of the situation, but Elvis lifted a hand without looking up. "Give her a second," he said. The crowd hushed. Even the police waited for his next move. The police were ready to step in, but Elvis didn't move. His hand stayed raised, palm out, as if holding back the entire world. "Just a second," he said, his voice low but steady. The night air pressed heavy on the scene, still warm even though midnight was closing in. A bead of sweat rolled down Elvis's temple and into the collar of his shirt. Somewhere far off, a car radio played faint static between stations. Mary's chest rose and fell in short, uneven bursts. Her sister gripped her hand tight, eyes darting between Elvis and the approaching ambulance. According to several witnesses, Elvis leaned in close to the sister and asked, "What song did you come here for?" The woman's voice cracked. "Love Me Tender. She's loved it since she was little." Elvis nodded once. Then, without ceremony, he began to hum. Just the first notes, slow, deliberate. The crowd shifted, murmurs fading into complete stillness. The melody hung in the humid air, familiar yet fragile. Even the hissing oxygen tank seemed to quiet under it. Mary's lips parted slightly, her breathing catching on the rhythm. Her fingers, still curled around the scarf draped over Elvis's neck, tightened just enough for him to feel it. Blue and red police lights painted the moment in moving colors, like stage lights gone soft. A few fans, still clutching their ticket stubs, stood on tiptoe for a better view. Elvis kept humming, watching her face for any sign of response. The siren of the ambulance grew louder, a long rising wail cutting through the night. The crowd's attention split between the flashing lights coming down the row and the man crouched on the asphalt. Witnesses say he didn't rush the song, just a single verse, enough to let her recognize the voice she'd traveled all that way to hear. She blinked right as he hit the last note, one fan later recalled, like she knew it was for her. As the ambulance rounded the corner into view, Elvis stopped humming. He leaned in, close enough that only Mary could hear. His words were lost to the crowd, but those nearby swear they saw the corner of her mouth lift just slightly before her eyes closed again. What he said would only be known to her. Paramedics rushed out with a stretcher. The crowd instinctively stepped back, but Elvis stayed put until the lead medic gave a nod. Only then did he rise, brushing grit from his knee. The scarf Mary had held slid into her sister's lap. Elvis left it there without a word. The stretcher's wheels rattled across the asphalt. The paramedics' radios crackled in short bursts. Behind them, the faint scent of exhaust signaled the ambulance engine was still running. As they lifted Mary into the ambulance, Elvis took a single step back, but not away. The sister reached for him, starting to say thank you, but he shook his head. He wasn't done yet. The stretcher rolled toward the open ambulance doors. Elvis followed, staying just close enough for the paramedics to glance at him but say nothing. One officer later told reporters he wouldn't leave until she was safe. The ambulance's interior lights spilled onto the pavement, pale and sterile against the deep Memphis night. The smell of antiseptic mingled with gasoline fumes. Somewhere behind the crowd, a fan's camera clicked, the sound sharp in the hush. Mary's sister, her voice unsteady, said, "I don't know how to thank you." Elvis shook his head. "She's the one who came all this way," he said, his tone quiet but final. A medic adjusted the oxygen mask over Mary's face. Her sister stepped into the ambulance, holding her hand. Elvis lingered at the threshold, eyes tracking every move until the back doors swung shut. The driver called out, "We're taking her to Methodist." Elvis nodded once, committing it to memory. Instead of turning back to the Cadillac, he reached into his inside jacket pocket. The street lamp caught the glint of a worn leather wallet. He pulled out a folded stack of bills, not counted, just gripped in one hand, and pressed them into the sister's palm before she could protest. "For the next show," he said. Front row, the sister tried to speak, but the ambulance engine revved. The moment was swallowed by the roar as it pulled away. The Cadillac door was open, engine idling. His driver leaned over, ready to usher him back in. Security looked restless, scanning the thinning crowd. But Elvis didn't move toward the car. Instead, he turned his head and caught the eye of one of his bodyguards, a tall man in a dark suit posted near the trunk. Without a word, Elvis made a small hand motion. The bodyguard straightened, then jogged to the back of the Cadillac. The metallic click of the trunk latch echoed in the quiet. People craned their necks to see. The guard leaned in, hands moving through something inside, then lifted an object wrapped in deep velvet. The fabric caught the yellow light as he brought it forward, steps brisk, expression unreadable. The crowd whispered, unsure what was about to happen. The guard stopped beside Elvis and placed the item in his hand. Elvis glanced down at it briefly, then back toward the direction the ambulance had gone. He started walking, not toward his car, but toward the woman's sister, still visible through the closing ambulance doors. What he was about to give her wasn't just a keepsake. The velvet felt warm in his hand from the bodyguard's grip. As the ambulance doors were about to shut, Elvis stepped forward. "Wait a second," he called. The paramedic paused, holding the door just wide enough for him to lean in. The interior smelled faintly of antiseptic wipes and warm rubber tubing. Mary's sister turned, confusion flashing across her face. Elvis extended the small bundle toward her. "This is for you, and for her." She hesitated, then took it. The velvet slid in her hands, soft against her fingertips. When she loosened the drawstring, a gold pendant dropped into her palm, a lightning bolt with the letters TCB, taking care of business. It was heavy for its size, the chain still warm from his neck. Fans nearby recognized it instantly. Elvis wore one on every tour. This one had been with him on stage just hours earlier. According to one witness, the sister's lips trembled. "I can't," she started, but Elvis shook his head. "Front row next time," he said again, and she. Where that? The ambulance engine rumbled. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, waiting for the signal to leave. Elvis stepped back, giving the sister one last nod before the doors shut fully as the ambulance pulled away. The pendant glinted under the street lamp, swinging gently in her hand like a promise. The Cadillac finally began to roll forward. Security exhaled, but the story didn't end in that parking lot. In fact, it wouldn't end for another week when something arrived at the family's doorstep that no one saw coming. It was a Thursday afternoon. The August heat had eased slightly, and cicadas buzzed outside the small Memphis home. Mary was recovering, still weak, but smiling more each day. Her sister stepped onto the porch to find a brown paper parcel resting against the doorframe. There was no return address, only her name written in looping script. Inside, to front row tickets for Elvis's next Memphis show, a brand new portable oxygen unit, and a folded note on Graceland stationery. The note read, "You'll always have a seat in the front row." Elvis Mary held the paper in both hands, reading it twice before pressing it to her chest. The oxygen unit meant she could safely attend, no panic about her health, no early exits. According to her sister, they never missed another Memphis show while Elvis was alive. That night in the parking lot became their favorite story to tell, not because of the concert, but because of what came after. In the end, it wasn't the spotlight, the music, or the crowd that defined the memory. It was one man, in the humid dark of a Memphis parking lot, choosing to stop. Kindness doesn't need a stage, it just needs a moment. If this moved you, share it with someone who believes kindness can stop a crowd cold. Have you ever seen a celebrity go out of their way for a fan? What happened?